Oh, hello. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another... Oh, I'm a bit high. There we are. Another Listen with Vobes with me, Richard Vobes, and we are reading The Thames to the Solent. I'm just making sure I got the stream actually going. This is part... I can't remember now. Part 4, is it? Part 4? Part 3? What have I written there? Part 4. Yes, we've only started this the other day, and we're well on our way to... Well, we're halfway through. Before we start to read, I will say a few hellos. I'm just going to take my ginger and lemon, because I can't now say ginger without thinking of the Archdeacon Bodkin's Hospital. Is it the Archbishop's Bodkin Hospital for waifs and strays? Good afternoon to the lovely Julia, to TurboStream, to Billabong O'Neill, to Charlie Cooper, Dave Over Yonder, Audrey Forbes Hamilton, Edward Moulding, Dave... I've just said Dave Over Yonder. I said it twice. You get double points. You can get those turned into prizes, Dave. Justine Jones, Pinch Punch, first day of the month. John F., Philip Hammond and Mary, Linda Kane... Just finished making celeriac soup. Oh, lovely. And Witchfinder General, good afternoon. Glenn Colley, not Glenn, Jen, as in Genevieve. Wait. Something came through my door. I believe it was you're responsible. You may have dropped this on the way through. And a lovely card. Thank you very much indeed. How about that? Isn't that nice? Very much appreciated. Yes, I shall give that a jolly old read. Thank you very much. If anybody's got any old books they don't like, I'm setting up a shop in which I collect old books but don't sell them. It's all good fun. Much appreciated. Dudley Sawyer, good afternoon. Back from a chilly bike ride. Cool, I bet it was. Martin Cannon, hello to you. The Thames, Richard, the Thames. Remember? I'm not sure what you're talking about, but yes, I'm sure I remember. Good game. All right, my love. What do points make? Prizes. So there we are. And a great book. I treated myself, says Linda Kane. Marvellous. Let's have a little slurp. Okay. So... did you manage to survive the weekend? Are we still in lockdown, by the way? Does anybody know? I think we are, aren't we? I think we've got it for another 5 years. We're on chapter 5, talking of 5 things. So, here we go. Shall we crack on? I think we ought. There are some favoured individuals among whom I am glad to number myself, who have the power of calling themselves at whatever hour of the morning they wish to awake, thereby rendering themselves quite independent. Are you able to do that? Can you just say to yourself, do you know, I'm going to wake myself at 3:30, and the snap of the fingers at 3:30... My glasses are a bit obscure. Obscure? They are obscure. Askew is what I mean. True enough, at 4:30, I woke and roused the house. It was a first-class morning, such as few of the upper 10,000 often see. I wish we'd had some good mornings. It's been pretty grey and dismal here. It is a sad pity that human nature requires so much slumber, for everyone seems to want a certain number of hours, short of which they are apt to feel out of sorts and not quite up to the mark. Were it otherwise... And would the customs of our time admit of our not turning night into day, especially in the summer, I am sure that much pleasure would be found in the delicious freshness of those early morning hours. Yes, absolutely. I do like the... Pardon? I do like the early morning hours. Richard needs a bit of chewed tissue. Anyone? Oh, yes, for the old glass eyes. I meant the spelling of the... Oh, gosh, yes, that's true. That's very true. Yes, the Thames, remember. Ah, yes, the Thames. Yes, I meant to look at it, didn't I? I completely forgot. Can I edit this as it's going? I daren't edit. We'll probably... If I write it down on a piece of paper... Sorry about that. I had an email, you see. Somebody said... Was it you? Was it Martin? I think it was. He said, as a printer, it sticks out like a sore thumb. I'm writing it here. The Thames. And there's me blindly saying, yes, yes. I don't know what you're talking about, but yes, yes. Look, the Thames. I've written it in ink. And if I leave it there, where can I leave it? I will leave it here, look. And I will change it forthwith. Well, I will leave it there, so when I go to turn it off, I can't help but knock it and go, what idiot put that there? Anyway, just need a bit of chewed paper now. After a little bit, sorry, a bit of COVID crept in there. After a bit, the little inn was in a bustle. Hot and cold water for Hot and cold water for shaving and baths to any amount, and boots polished like mirrors. Thus our toilettes were accomplished with as much comfort as if we had been chez nous. I can fancy my readers saying, well done, that sounds like business. So it was, but we have not done yet. The breakfast was a capital one, and as punctual as we could wish, for our little table saw its cold meat, eggs, toast, coffee waiting for us at the given hour at 5:45 a.m. If I remember rightly, they're staying in the King's Head in Billingshurst, and I'm absolutely convinced that we were reading... either we were reading it or I was reading it or I read it somewhere. I'm sure we read that somebody else stayed at the same hotel. Did we do that in this thing? I thought it was the Rural Rides bloke. What's his name? Whose name has just gone out. It was just in my head a second ago. Who's the guy? Rural Rides? You know what I mean. Was it he who stayed there or somebody else stayed there? And I remember him saying that it was a splendid breakfast and they left early, if I remember rightly. But who was it? It wasn't Walter Wilkinson because he didn't stay in those. I'm just trying to think. And it wasn't... Was it Morton? Couldn't have been Morton. Maybe it was. Martin Cannon says, that's good, put my mind at rest. I can now follow with joy. Excellent. Who was the bloke in Rural Rides? That's annoying me now. It's going to come up. You're going to say it before I remember. What's his name? It's not in here, right? It's in the other room. Oh, yes, there we are. Jenny Gage. Thank you very much. William Cobbett. I knew it was Cobbett. I just couldn't bring it to mind. I was thinking of Hobbit. Anyway, the bill was very moderate, and we all got off at 6:30. A little before 7 o'clock, we reached Newbridge, where our boat lay quietly at her moorings, wet in her morning bath of dew. It took us a short time to get under way, and forward was the cry. The bargees and the lockman had informed us the day before that we need not encumber ourselves with crowbar or winch, for we would find them at the locks, pro bono publico. I guess that's free for the public use. Pro bono. What is that? That is Latin. Is that like free gratis? The same meadow scenery continued, and the same lovely weather. In about an hour's time, we reached the first lock, which was opened for us while we watched the lock-keeper's wife and two pretty daughters. Yeah? You're not going to leave it there, are you? No, they were making butter. Sorry. Watching the lock-keeper's wife and two pretty daughters making butter in the early morn. Where are they making butter, though? Outside, presumably. Though flat, the meadows on each side presented us a truly English picture. And we left, didn't we? We left with me looking at the lock down the road from the bridge, didn't we? The very lock that they must be at now. And if you remember, I was showing you from the video I made, and I said to you, what a typical English scene with small fields with houses and with hedges of good sizes and trees and green, apart from the Italian ryegrass and all that perennial ryegrass, whatever it was. That it was a typical, and there he is. It was as if I'd pre-read which I haven't. Pro bono, free of charge. There I are, see? The old brain is working a little bit today. Anyway, yes, the English picture with cattle dotted around here and there and in groups, the larks soaring aloft, sending forth their melodious morning song, and the banks of the canal clothed with wild flowers of every hue and colour. We enjoyed this part of our route almost as much. What do you mean almost as much? Almost as much as any. Surely you could have enjoyed it a bit more with our Sussex rural scene. Cheek. The canal, after leaving Newbridge, becomes much narrower, and the locks are considerably smaller, with single instead of double gates. This part of it, from Newbridge to Pallingham, is in different hands, and it is said to have cost £15,000. We had about 3 locks to pass before we arrived at the Great Pallingham Lock, which is the largest I ever saw, about 40 feet long and 30 feet deep, and wide enough for 2 good-sized barges to lie alongside each other. The lock keeper was not at home, so I had to fill this great basin single-handed, which was no joke, for it required a considerable amount of strength. Here was the receiving house of the Arran Canal Company, where we were called upon to pay a shilling toll. A lockkeeper's wife made tender inquiries after the steamer that we had seen in Guildford. It had passed up 2 days previously, and the good lady had not heard of the accident which befell it. A short distance after passing through Pallingham Lock, we entered the River Arran, which was considerably wider than the canal, so that our towing rope became too short, and we were obliged to make use of the boat's cable, which we made fast to the end of it. The Arran's source is in St. Leonard's Forest, and the river is celebrated for its mullet, trout, and eels. Just pausing briefly, as he mentions St. Leonard's Forest, I was out filming the walk which is up on the Bald Explorer channel today called Muddy to the Church. And I was just walking back, and I walked back along the main road there and staying on the verge, out the way, of cars that were shooting at speed down there. And a car approached me and slowed. And I thought, hello. So I moved over a bit more, and the window was wound down, and this very nice gentleman called out and said, he said, "Are you the Bald Explorer?" And I said, "Might be." You know, because you never quite know. I said, "Yes." He said, "We've just been watching an episode of your programme." He said, "Oh," I said, "Oh, have you? Oh, well, I'm out doing another one." I said, "I'll be up tomorrow." He said, "Oh," I think he was Italian, because he had like Giovanni or something, his name. And he said, "Oh, fantastic. It's so nice to see you, blah, blah, blah." Anyway, he said, "Would it be all right if we had a picture?" Now, he was stopped on the main road with cars trying to get back round him. And I said, "Well, you can, but probably not here, because it's a bit dangerous." And his wife next to him was saying, "Oh, darling, it's too dangerous. You know, we cannot do this." So I said, "Look, I'm actually walking back to my van, which is about 100 yards down the road then, in a lay-by. If you go up the road here, there's another lay-by. You could turn round and come back, and I'll meet you there, and you can take the picture." And he said, "Ah, yes, it's so nice. You take the picture pro bono publica." I said, "You've been reading that book Thames to the Solent with an H missing." And he said, with an A missing. He said, "Yes." Anyway, so I walked to the van. They came round. Turns out his daughter was doing a project on St. Leonard's Forest. I know, you were thinking, hello, where does St. Leonard's Forest? By the way, is Andrew Norris out there? We don't want to get into trouble like we did last week with him saying no waffle. Anyway, his daughter is doing a project on St. Leonard's Forest about the dragons and the various legends and all of this, the devil and the mile. Was it Mill's Mile or whatever it was? Anyway, so I said, "Oh, that's interesting." And they said, "Yes, but the most important thing is the teacher was giving them the homework to do about the forest, and they recommended they watch your video about it." I said, "What, my video?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Cool, blimey, those poor kids, all the facts will be wrong and everything." But no, that's the truth. He said that his daughter, Sophia, I think. It's Sophia. And the other daughter was called Julia, funnily enough, but she was asleep. So there we are. Hope Richard didn't curb his wafers. Crush his wafers. Ha ha, yes. And he was off to get into his ice cream van, of course. Aye, you crushed my wafers and my cornets. Oh, dear, that's funny. Anyway, that was the reference to St. Leonard's Forest. It gave us a moment of absolute nonsense, didn't it? The Arran source is in St. Leonard's Forest, and the river is celebrated for its mullet, trout and eels. We now observed a striking contrast between canal and river travelling. The banks of the canal, although in places excessively pretty, were almost always perfectly parallel and presented a certain artificial formality which does not exist in a natural river. The Arran's banks, on the contrary, were varied, now steep, now broken and low, and at times the towing line had to pass over the tops of tall sedges and alders. The river, now being wide, now narrow, now deep, now shallow, forever varying. Of course, our course lay through a fine park with likely-looking coverts dotted all round. Coverts? What's a covert? Covert, isn't there? Covert is like an inlet, isn't it? Would you say that was what it was? A covert is a little inlet, C-O-V-E-R-T. Coverts. Is that like a little, like if you were looking down at the coastline, it would be like a bay, but a little sort of. Is that what I mean? Am I thinking right? Glenn Colley says she's here for the waffle. Good for you. I'm sorry I wasn't in when you. I don't know whether you knocked on the door or just posted it through, because sometimes I'm hibernating next to the Essie in the kitchen at the deep end of the house and don't always hear the door. One has to. And the butler, I'm afraid, is on furlough at home, so he's no good. It's a culvert. That's a culvert. Oh, a covert. Is it it says covert here. Is you saying it's the same thing as a culvert, a little drainage ditch? I try and avoid lists, says TurboStream. I never get round to crossing the things off because I forget. Culverts are those little channels. Yes, that's what I was asking, because it says coverts here. When you say it's a culvert, do you mean it's the same thing? That's what I'm asking. Type faster, please. Anyway, he's so rude. Our course lay through a fine park with likely-looking coverts dotted all round, from which no doubt many a pheasant has fallen a victim and many foxes has been unkennelled. We saw the keeper and his dogs crossing the park, which looked as if there was, or ought to be, game on the property, and I have no doubt good fishing and boating in the Arran besides. I wonder what park we're talking about. What? I'm just looking. Coverts are little copses, aren't they, for game? But is that? Yes. Well, that seems to be what he's talking about. Coverts. Yes. You said. Yeah, that's interesting. I have no doubt good fishing and boating in the Arran besides. So I wonder what park he's talking about on the other side of Pallingham. Anybody know? Anybody guess? Nigel Sadler probably knows, but he's not. Doesn't seem to be there. Shall we? This bloody sign about the Thames. We'll move that out of the way. It's in the way of the computer, isn't it? I put that there for a reason. Oh, I can't remember. Let's have a quick diversion. Google Maps. We'll go to Google Maps. Or should we go to Bing Maps? Actually, I'm going to go to Bing Maps for a change. Bing Maps. Bing Maps. And let's have a look. Where are we now? So there's Pulborough, Billingshurst. Here we go. Zoom in. River Arran. Oh yeah. So Pallingham. Let's have a look on the Ordnance Survey. There's Newbridge. So he's come down here. Lordings Lock. That's where we flew over last time. Disused. Pathway down here. Weir. Pallingham Manor, the remains of. Oh, so do you think it's Pallingham Manor's farm? Pallingham? No, because that remains of looks like it might be ancient. Pallingham Bridge, Pallingham Lock. Oh yeah, Pallingham Lock Farm. Wait a minute. Pallingham Bridge. Where's the actual lock, you swine? Pallingham Dean. Moat. There's a moat. Where's that near? Pulborough. There's no accessible footpath to that. The gallops and all of that. I wonder where he's talking about. Just looking. There's a Fittleworth. Fittleworth Wood? Wait a minute. That seems to be in the wrong place. Oh, yes. No, Fittleworth is there in relation to Pallingham Quay. Oh, what's the matter? Sorry about that. Went a bit bonky. Pallingham Quay is down here. Pallingham Bridge. It must be. Where's the route of the canal? Can't see the bloody canal now. The river. Well, I can see the river. Sorry, just talking to myself. You're probably. I am, but I'm not paying full attention. Oh, swine. Just when the time we actually need him, the time we need the head boy, he's not there. He's not paying attention. He's probably doing some twiddling or something. Twiddling wires together. He can't. He's not down at. He's not got to Arundel, so it's not that. I'm just trying to think. Is it Stopham? Is it around here? Do you suppose? Could be. Motte Bailey, Mound. Oh, that's the castle. That's Pulborough Castle. Yeah. Okay, got that. And there's the gallops and all of that. So anyway, somewhere around there is where we reckon he is. Well, I say we is me. Let's have an aerial view then. Does that help us? No, not really. Doesn't do a damn thing, does it? Anyway. So, yes, so there we are. On leaving the park, he says, we came under a picturesque old stone bridge to Stopham. Ah, right, okay. So now we know where he is. On leaving the park, he's at Stopham Bridge. So that must be the Stopham. What is it? Stopham and Pay one. Stopham and Buy one. Stopham. It must be Stopham Park then. Must be where he's been at. Oh, he's working. Nigel's working today. It's very kind of him. I'm sure his employer is very happy that he's working today. Anyway, there is an inn. Oh, now Julia and I have eaten at this inn. There is an inn close to the river where a halt might be made to see the old church. And I've made a video about the old church, which is interesting and of Norman architecture. In fact, Lord Stopham, whatever his name is, can't remember his name now, the chap there, Lord, who lives in the house, he came over and showed me around and showed me the brasses and told me about his family. It's a fascinating video if you want to see it. Stopham Church. If you put Bald Explorer Stopham Church, you'll probably come up. There is also a fine view over the Weald country from a hill at the back of the village. The river now winds a good deal through water meadows, in the midst of which we arrived at the junction of the Arun with the Rother, which latter river is navigable to Midhurst and under the management of the Arun Canal Company. We're told this company still pays its way, and that before the railroad was opened, and it was in a flourishing state, producing a very comfortable dividend. We soon came to Hardham Lock and Mill. Gosh, he's whizzing along now, isn't he? Whilst the lock was filling, I entered into conversation with a gentleman who I soon found out was Mr. Frank Buckland. He had come down from London with 5 or 6 other commissioners to inspect the capabilities of the river for salmon fishing. They seemed to take great interest in our proceedings, and Mr. Buckland produced his Ordnance Survey map and begged me to point to him the route we had traversed. While we were busily engaged, the groom hallooed out, "Look out, sir! Look out!" We at once discovered that the boat had drifted under an iron footbridge which crossed the lock, and as the water rose, she began to settle down deeper and deeper, the mast being wedged so firmly under the bridge that we could not get it free. I rushed to stop the water coming in and open the hatches at the other end. In the meanwhile, Mr. Buckland very kindly stood by the side of the lock to render any assistance my wife might require in this critical position. It was fortunate that we had discovered our predicament in time, for the water, almost at level with the bulwarks of the boat, before it commenced to decrease. I know that bulwarks is not pronounced bulwarks, but I can't remember how you pronounce it. And a little more would have caused her to fill. Oh, my giddy. At about a couple of 100 yards from this spot, the river makes a detour of about 5 miles round by Pulborough, so as to avoid which a canal has been cut, passing through the chalk cliff by means of a tunnel. When he says a chalk cliff, that makes it sound like it's really high, but it's only a tiny little mound, isn't it, really? I can't really see why there's a tunnel there at all, because you don't go terribly high. At least that's my impression of it, having walked to the tunnel entrance and then walked over the tunnel. It's only a sort of little humpy hill. A couple of 100... I've read that, yes, blah, 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 the chim-chim-chim. At the entrance of this tunnel we found another lock, where we parted company with the pony, which had to go over the top and meet us at the other end. The tunnel is 1/4 of a mile long, 13 feet wide, the same in height, and cost £6,000. I punted the boat along by means of the boat hook against the roof. In the middle of it, it became quite dark, and we could just guide ourselves by means of the bright outlet at the end. Oh, and here we have a picture for those who are fascinated to know what the tunnel looks like. Yes, so the tunnel itself, look at that. I mean, barely call it a tunnel, could you really? I mean, that's the cliff edge is, you know, it's only just over a man's height, really, from the ground. Well, a bit more than a man's height, maybe, but not much. Lee Lawson says, that's my impression too. Never understood the tunnel. I suppose if you actually made a cut, you'd have to put bridges in. So I guess they basically put a tunnel. Maybe it was the landowner. Maybe it was the landowner who said, you ain't leaving, you're not putting a thing like that. I want to be able to move across. So therefore they tunnelled it and turfed it, perhaps, and tunnelled it so that it was strong enough to take the weight. The roof was covered with stalactites, and in places the water fell upon us from crevices above in heavy drops, so that we had to try steer clear from them when we heard the splashes in the water. I wouldn't have thought there's that much room to steer a boat round things dropping from the top. It took about 10 minutes to pass through this subterranean passage, and when we had emerged on the other side, it was some moments before we came accustomed to the bright light of day. We were detained here for some time, for the groom had mistaken his way and did not turn up for about 20 minutes after we got out of the tunnel. He'd gone to the pub, hadn't he? I bet he'd gone to the pub. We recommenced our journey along a flat country, still in the canal, until we reached Waltham Lock at about 12:30 p.m, where we found that the tide had, as calculated, turned to ebb. We got out to find it was part of the Sussex Wildfowl Trust and mostly had been filled in with earth. And there was a bald bloke and a girl with purple hair holding a camera and a small baby. They were making a film, which we had no idea what a film was, seeing as it had yet to be invented. But we were told that it wasn't a film but something called a video, to be placed on a tube that had something to do with ewes. We thought this a very novel idea that would never catch on, and who would ever want to watch such stupid behaviour? We ignored him and carried on with our journey. Curious. Oh, here we go. TurboStream says they did that when the railways were expanding. A few landowners did not want to see smoke of the engines. Quite, yes, I could understand that. So in a canal, you wouldn't want to see the splash of water and all of that. It was with feeling of satisfaction that we now found ourselves in a tideway at no great distance from the sea. The tide had turned about an hour before we got to Waltham, the last lock of our journey, and the river began to shoal in many parts. It became very wide, and we had about 100 yards of towing line at one time, and we were going at a brisk pace when we were suddenly brought up. We had come to an aggravating kind of gate. The principle upon which it worked was ingenious, but it seemed to have been made to puzzle people's brains as to how they should pass it. It consisted of 2 upright posts in the ground, with 3 wooden bars fixed across them, each working upon a pivot, and weighted at one end, so that in order to open the gate it was necessary to press the bars down to the ground and hold them in that position until the animal had stepped over. I thought he meant this was in the river. I got somewhat confused then. I thought he meant this was a gate in the river. Hang on a minute. Let me just go back. I'm sorry about that. Yes, it'd be very wide, and and we're going at a brisk pace. We came to an aggravating kind of gate, must be on the bank, presumably. The principle upon which it worked was ingenious. Right, okay, we'll understand this now. It seemed to have been made to puzzle people's brains. It consisted of 2 upright posts in the ground. Well, in the ground should have given it away, but I thought he meant in the ground in the water, you know, with 3 wooden bars fixed across them. Well, so far it's just a 5, what do you call them? A 5-star gate, not 5-star gate, 5-bar gate, a 3-bar gate so far, with 3 wooden bars fixed across them, each bar working on a pivot and weighted at one end. So it's 3 bars on a pivot, weighted at one end. Right. So that in order to open the gate, it was necessary to press the bars down to the ground and hold them in that position until the animal... Oh, I see. You push it down and the animal can step over it. I've got it. Yeah. When, by letting them go, the weight fell at the other end and the bars sprung back into position. See illustration, page 59. Oh, right. That is hardly a very good illustration, but what page am I on now? 47. Here we go. So, when it will decide to be in focus, if I can get any light on the matter. So there's a gate. I can't really see quite how it works from that, but I got the principle in my head. Push it down. Find a clapper gate on images. Oh, is that what it's called? Who said that? Linda Kane? I don't know. I don't know why I'm here. Linda Kane and Lee Lawson. They seem to know everything. Oh, and Nigel Sadler. Between the 3 of them, they could have a channel themselves. We could, like the Boffins on Eggheads, couldn't they? Not that I watch television, but I have heard of that programme. Clapper gate. That's not like that thing in America, is it? Where they were Watergate. No, that's a different thing. Clappergate. Ah, here's a good version of one. Here's a good Clappergate. Interesting. Here we go. Look at this. That's sort of what I was thinking. Oh, I see. There's the pivots. Clappergate. Do you see, I wonder if you see many of those. Are there many of those around? I learnt something today. A Clappergate. Good old... Right, where are we? So, they opened the Clappergate. There we go. This may all be very well, but there were This may be very well where 2 persons are present, the one to lead the beast over while the other presses down the bars. But how one alone is to get on with a timid or fidgety animal, it's difficult to say. We had encountered one or two of these gates before on this day's journey, but the pony had always willingly stepped over them whilst the groom held the bars down. But on this occasion, in doing so, they accidentally sprung up under her while she was in the act of clearing them, which frightened her to such a degree that no persuasion would induce her to attempt to cross them again. Oh! The groom tried every artifice he could devise to get her over. He tied the bars down, got her back, and rode at them, coaxed her, but all to no avail. Meanwhile, we could render no assistance from where we were in the centre of a wide tidal river, with steep mud banks on either side of us, where there were no means of landing. It was evident, however, that I must land somehow in order to help. So we paddled with the sweeps in the hopes of being able to find a landing place. Fortunately, succeeded about a quarter of a mile below, where I got ashore as best I could and ran back to the groom, whom I found still labouring to get the pony over the gate. We tried all kinds of dodges without avail, and at last I shot the animal and carried it over dead. No, I made that up. I'm sorry about that. Julia's going, "What?" He's probably having a heart attack. At last, I had to resort to whipping her over while he led her at it, and she immediately cleared as though she were going over a 5-bar gate. Anyway, away we went again, and soon picked up the boat that we had lost, sad to say, nearly an hour's tide. 2 or 3 of the same kind of fences followed each other, at which we had more or less the same difficulty, and we did not reach Amberley until nearly 2 o'clock. Here we brought up to make up our midday halt. Let us pause at this stage for a short time to examine the interesting ruins of Amberley Castle. I shot you daggers from my eyeballs, Richard, says the lovely Julia. I wonder if Airfix do a model of one. What, an Airfix of Clappergate? That would be good. I should call, if I named these episodes, which I don't, of course, but this episode would be called Clappergate. Actually, it would be called more like Clappergate, with a bit of reverb on it. Let's pause to have a look at Amberley Castle. Right, okay. The castle is constructed on a rock and is in the form of a parallelogram, having a square tower at each corner. The exterior wall in the north is almost perfect. Then the east and west ends, but the south is not in such good preservation. It is defended on the side by a fosse, over which a bridge leads to the principal entrance between 2 small round towers with grooves for a portcullis. On the north and west sides it appears to have been of no great strength. The ruins of an arch within the walls prove the architecture to have been light and elegant. Amberley Castle was used as a residence of the bishops of Chichester from the time of the Conquest. It was castellated in 1379. In 1643, after the surrender of the Arundel Castle, it fell into the hands of Cromwell's troops, who plundered and dismantled it without mercy. We are not going to stop.
No, please, I'm not a real castle.
No mercy is given. Troops, attack, warts and all. Sorry, that's me squeezing the warts as they come in. I think that's one of the ways that Cromwell's men attacked, isn't it? Squeezing the warts. The little church which adjoins is also well worth visiting. Made a video in there, by the way, if you were interested. The chancel is Norman, and the south door, very rich early English. The Amberley sea trout are famous, though not very plentiful. But we must not delay any longer, or we shall lose our tide, especially 1 mile farther down the river, at a place called Houghton. The towing path comes to an end there, and we must therefore take to our oars for a 7 miles pull to Arundel. Wishing, however, to give the pony a good rest after her long morning's work, we commenced to row at once.
Row on!
The tide was running strong when we passed under the old bridge at Amberley, eating our luncheon as we drifted on. We went by Berry Hill at a great pace and soon came to the overhanging wooded cliffs of Arundel Park. The river here is strikingly pretty, and we met a great number of pleasure boats, rowing and fishing. How does a pleasure boat fish? Does it dip its nose in and just let the water come in and then the fish are stuck and somehow through a plug hole? Or was it the people in the boats who were doing the fishing? I think that's probably what he means. We thoroughly enjoyed this enchanting scene and did not hurry ourselves when, all at once, it occurred to us that the tide was getting slacker. We asked a boatman, who seemed to be in a hurry, how far it was to Arundel. He replied, "Oh, a long way if you don't make haste. You won't get there today, mate." This sounded very discouraging, and we knew that should the tide turn, it would be impossible for us to row against it any distance. No time was therefore to be lost, so we set to work and pulled our best. "Harder, woman, harder! Can't you see I'm holding the tiller? Row harder, wife!"
I'm doing the best as I can, but you could help me.
"I cannot help you any more than this. I'm holding the tiller and holding a cable to the thing, and the horse is... I don't know why the horse isn't helping. Pony. It's all very exciting. I've lost my space. That's the trouble. We soon left the shelter of the woods, the river winding out into the plain, with high mud banks on either side of us, covered with extensive beds of tall growing sedges. The tide soon began to work up the centre of the river, and we had to hug the banks to try and cheat it. It was now becoming hard work, and we still had a long way before us. It was impossible to get out and tow, and the soft mud banks at Low River were deep and high, even where they were clear of rushes. We had therefore to stick to our work, each pulling in turn, and sometimes both together. By and by we came to a point where one branch of the river led off to the left and another went straight on. In our maps, the straight course was not indicated, and the one to the left was marked as leading to Stoke, by which we afterwards found we should have followed 3 or 4 great bends in the river before reaching Arundel. After a minute's consultation, we thought we would chance the course which led straight on, and right glad we were that we had done, for it certainly shortened our distance by 2 or 3 miles. At last, the castle opened into view. This gave us fresh energy, and we pulled right well. In another hour, we would meet some barges coming up with the tide, and they told us that we only had about 1 mile that we would easily, on the same evening, get to Littlehampton. This was good news, and a reward for our perseverance, especially as we had by this time made quite up our minds that we would be obliged to stop the night at Arundel, thinking it impossible to reach Littlehampton that evening against the strong tide, added to which, 100 yards ahead, we espied our groom running along the water meadows to meet us. Don't tell me they're going to go to the Black Rabbit. Are they going to go to the Black Rabbit? Are they going to have a pint at the Black Rabbit and take it easy? Or are they going to carry on? What's the time? It's 1:45. Oh, my God. Will we ever find out? We might. Hang on a minute. What is it? Apparently, clapper gates are a distinctive type of self-closing double gate, unique to the navigable reaches of the River Trent. So probably none in Sussex now. Oh, what a shame. Turbo Stream. Today I investigate a clappergate. Yes, that sounds good. Row harder, and that's an order. The lovely Julia will never forget the time I ordered her on the canal boat. I gave an order. I realised my mistake fairly quickly. You must never order the lovely Julia. I will never do it again. Cross my heart and hope to never do it again. Anyway, our what's his name? The groom. He had fetched our letters, which we had desired our friends to address to Arundel. Oh, that's very nice of him, isn't it? We flung him a towing rope and made him pull us up to the bridge, where we arrived at 5:30. We didn't go to the Black Rabbit or any of that nonsense. We just went to the bridge. He left us to fetch the pony. Meanwhile, we had a stiff job to get out of the boat through the bridge, for the tide was now rushing up like a sluice. We made several attempts, but were beaten. At last we got close to the wall and pulled ourselves through by means of the boat hook, and so all along the sides of the houses with which the quays... What? Sorry, I lost Miss... At last we got close to the wall and pulled ourselves up through by means of the boat hook, and so all along the sides of the houses which, with the quays, present one even face to the river. After getting below the town, the tide slackened a little, and we here awaited the arrival of the pony. You are allowed one mistake, Richard. Thank you very much. One mistake. That's it. Yes. Oh, you mean... Yeah, that's no F in order. We hired a rowing boat from the cafe at Houghton Bridge. It's almost impossible to row against the tide. Is it? What do you do then? Do you have to just wait for the... You can't wait 8 hours for the tide to change, or 6, or whatever it is. Do you have a little motor that they give you, or do they just leave the boat down at Houghton, wherever it is? No, because from Houghton you would be going up... So what is the advice to... Wait, I'm trying to think. You're rowing against the tide coming in. Yes. So you row up to Littlehampton and let the tide bring you back. I guess that's what you're saying, if you judge it right. Because it's a very fast-flowing river, isn't it? You could end up in Littlehampton in no time if you didn't know what you were doing. The word... How are we doing? Where's the end of this chapter? Have we got time to get to the end of the chapter? Will we ever find out? Oh, the obnoxious gate goes on and on. There's the obnoxious gate. Blimey. We have a few more minutes. The word Arundel is said to be a liaison between the words Arundel, Arun, and Herondel. A steep street leads from the river up to the castle. Tickets are issued at the hotel to see the keep and grounds, but the inhabited part of the castle is not shown. The first mention of Arundel is made in the will of Alfred the Great. Tradition states that Bevis was the founder of the castle, and there still exists a tower called Bevis Tower. Gilpin says, Bevis was a giant of ancient times, whose power was equal to his size. He was able to wade the channel of the sea to the Isle of Wight, and frequently did for his amusement. Great, however, as Bevis was, he condescended to be warder at the gate of the Earls of Arundel, who built this tower for his reception, and supplied him with 2 hogsheads of beer every week, a whole ox, and a proportional quantity of bread and mustard. Now there's a meal, bread and mustard. Can you imagine? Is it Coleman's mustard? It is true the dimensions of the tower are only proportional to a man of moderate size, but such an inconsistence is nothing when opposed to the traditions of a county. Earl Roger de Montgomery and his sons successively held the castle until 1118, when it was granted by Henri I to his queen Adeliza. I adore Adeliza, who married William de Albany. It is related that before his marriage, the Queen of France, a woman of great beauty, being then a widow, caused a tournament to be proclaimed throughout her dominions. On this occasion, Albany repaired to Paris and bore away the palm from all his competitors. The Queen, struck with the prowess and person of this champion, invited him to an entertainment, and having presented him with some jewels of great value, made him an offer of her hand.
My husband and I would like you to have the hand. Here, It's on a silver platter. Look after it, would you, while I go and find a plaster. There's an awfully lot of blood, isn't there? Oh, I do feel rather faint. I may not quite make it to the door. Oh dear, I think I'm going to... Ouch!
A moment of humour there, ladies and gentlemen. Humour, as we say in England. Yes, that was her arm, her hand even. Here's my hand. Bore it away. Yes. Having already engaged his word to Adeliza, he declined. "Oh, I'm not having this rancid hand," he said. "This splendid match, which the Queen, as we are told... he declined this splendid match, on which the Queen, as we are told, to revenge the disappointment, ordered him to be shut up in the lion's den, where the undaunted Albany thrust his hand into the mouth of the formidable brute, pulled up his tongue by the roots." Oh, and pulled up the lion's tongue. Here.
Oh.
And now it's just a whimpering cat.
Meow, meow.
Poor little lion. Poor little lion. It's such an outrage. From this action, he is said to have acquired the appellation of William with the Strong Hand. It's not very catchy, is it? The Empress Maud, can you imagine? No, a better word than Maud. The Empress Maud was the guest of Queen Adeliza when she came over to dispute her claims with King Stephen. The king, having heard of her presence in the castle, besieged it and demanded her to surrender.
Maud, come out with your hands up.
Queen Adeliza sent him. She changed her name frequently, which was very irritating on her Instagram account, as you can imagine. Sent him a spirited message. Sent him a spirited message to the effect that she had received the Empress as her friend, not as an enemy, and that, as she did not intend to mix her up in these disputes, she begged that the Empress might be allowed to depart, but, she added, if you are determined to besiege her here, I will endure to the last extremity of war rather than give her up, or suffer the laws of hospitality to be violated. King Stephen assented, and the Empress retired to Bristol.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I am now going to Bristol. Goodbye.
Goodbye. I wouldn't go by tide. It's very difficult to row against it, you know, I've heard. In 1243, the estates went by marriage to the Fitzalans. It is said that Richard, Earl of Arundel, was accused of conspiring with others against the life of King Richard II. He was tried and condemned. The king was present at his execution. Yatta! And the spectacle remained so deeply imprinted on his mind that his sleep was interrupted by dreams representing to him the Earl covered in blood and HP sauce, tomato sauce probably, and unbriding him with his injustice. A rumour prevailed that several miracles were wrought at this tomb, and that his head was miraculously rejoined to his body. To counteract this notion, the king ordered the corpse be taken up and exposed for 10 successive days to the public. Here it is, look, there he is. Still nothing could persuade the people that the Earl was not a martyr. Nothing could be more unpopular than the execution of this nobleman who possessed many valuable qualities and had served with great success against the enemy and always asserted the liberties of the people by whom he was much beloved. Oh, I do love the Earl. The Fitzalans held the castle and estates till 1580, when Earl Fitzalan's daughter, inheriting it, bought it by marriage to the House of Norfolk. Arundel Castle underwent 3 sieges, the first in 1102, at nearly 5 past the hour, by Henry I, again by Stephen in December 1643 by the parliamentary troops under St. W. Waller. Oh, sorry, the Stephen then is not during the English Civil War, clearly. Again by Stephen, and in December 1643 by the parliamentary troops under Sir William, presumably, Waller, to whom it was surrendered. It is said that during the last siege, artillery played upon it from the church steeple, which reduced the great part to ruins. I'm trying to find a place to stop, ladies and gentlemen. We may end up... Yes, how are we doing? We're right on the thing. Yes, the states went by merit. Oh, it's all a bit complicated now. So I'll tell you what. Let's wait a minute. Where did I get to? The keep is the principal site to see. Well, we'll start. We'll stop here. I think we'll stop where we are, because he goes on about the keep is the principal site to see, and it is well worth a visit. And we will visit it in the next episode, which I hope you enjoyed. It was rather the Thames. I haven't forgotten. I shall put that there. Let's just quickly have a look at some of your comments. You end up in the Solent, says Turbo Stream. You probably do. Lee Lawson says, just pootle about by the cafe. It was scary, though, but luckily we had a couple of strong friends with us. Oh, yes, I have actually been years and years ago as a young, strapping young lad. Now I'm a strapping old lad. Have rowed on that river and hired a boat there. And I think we did the same. I don't think it was like half an hour in the boat and that was enough. You got a bit bored by then. Arun is one of the fastest flowing rivers in the country. My grandma, says Linda Kane, Lee Lawson says, my grandmother was called... how do you pronounce it? Adeliza? Is it Adeliza? It's a lovely name. Bastardized by me, of course. I wish they had called me after Hyde. I think it's much better than I says Lee Lawson. Adeliza Lawson. Adeliza. Lee's a nice name, though, isn't it? Lee by any other name. I can see the connection. Her other name was Maud. That's what she was usually called. Maud. Maud is such a horrible name, isn't it? Horrible name. I mean, I don't mean that now. Adeliza, like Liza Minnelli. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Liza Minnelli, the girl on the telly. Julia says, one of my grandmothers was known as Babs, but her given name was Maureen. Never understood why. Maud, says Martin Cannon, says, is a very popular in here in France. Fanny is too. Fanny, that? Fanny by gaslight, where the term gaslighting comes from, that most people know the term gaslighting, but don't actually know it came from the... Was it a novel or a play? I think it was a play, wasn't it? Fanny by Gaslight. Very famous play in its day, but not so famous these days. But I think my friend Nigel Cooper was in a version of it when he was in his youth. Brummies sometimes call each other Bab. Yarn all right, Bab? Yarn all right, Bab? Are you all right then? Mr. Zero. I once listened to a play on Radio 4 years and years ago when Radio 4 actually was a non-biased thing and you could get some good content on it. And there was this play called Mr. Zero, and it was these two Brummies. And he just kept going, you all right there? They'd made this robot and they called him Mr. Zero. What's he going to do? I don't know. I don't know what he's going to do. Wait, where's he gone? Oh, no, he's got loot. Is it your fault? And they just kept arguing like this. This is how I now picture Brummies. It's just, you shouldn't have opened the gate. Well, I didn't know I was going to open the gate until it came up to it. And then I don't know what possessed me. Well, you should have thought so. It was a great play. Don't know whether it's ever been repeated. Martin Cannon says, I've been to Birmingham, Turbo, having lived in Lyon for over 40 years. I'd like to hear a French Birmingham accent. Wonderful story. Keeps the mind working, says Anne H. Nice to see you, Anne H. there, hiding in the background. Lovely to have you with us. Michael White says, all the old-fashioned names seem to be coming back into fashion. There we go. There was a film called Gaslight, says Dave over yonder. Yes, but it was a Victorian play before that. But I'm sure the film is probably the same thing as I remember it. What do I know? I know nothing. Nothing, I tell you. And that's what I will say to the police constable when he asks me. I know nothing. Nothing. Anyway, that's it for today. Back again tomorrow. Do tune in. Hope you enjoyed it. Bit of nonsense in the afternoon. Lovely Julia. Look at that. Thanks for reading. My pleasure, lovely Julia. Look after yourselves. Hope you all have a good rest of the evening. Back with the Vobe Show with the lovely Julia. And that's an order. Ooh. Right, I should go and attend to this now. So take care, look after yourselves, and thank you for watching. And don't forget, make sure you go easy through the Clappergate. Till next time. Fanny by Gaslight, published in 1940. Oh, it's about prostitutes. You could read it to us. Is that what it is? Fanny by Gaslight, published in 1942. In 1940. Oh, I thought it was older than that. But there you go. But isn't that where the gaslighting term comes from? Making the woman seem that she's mad. We'll choose that then. Fanny by Gaslight will be the next book. I'll see if I can get a copy. Yes. Well read, Mr. Summer Breeze. Thank you very much. Yes, we must take a trip one day to Summer Breeze. Was that the place where old Ticknet Edwards went that never existed? All good. Take care. Nice to see you. Pip pip and all of that. Ship shape and Bristol fashion until Leon is the world's gastronomy capital. Is it? Ah, is it? Yeah, you wouldn't be Leoning about that then, would you? No, of course not. Read the Scapegoat. Who's that? It's Scapegoat. Is that the same one that wrote Rebecca? What's her name? Don't tell me. What's her name? Oh, you know who I mean. She wrote Rebecca, and she wrote a number of... Is that the same woman? Oh, what? Come on. Tell me who it was. Oh, it's a fanciful name, isn't it? It's a long two words to the name. God, what's her name? Who wrote Rebecca was not Somerset Maugham. I know who it is. I can't bring it to mind. But is the Scapegoat, is that the same one? Anybody still there? Lion's Corner House. Ah, Daphne du Maurier. Yes, that's right. Was it Daphne du Maurier? Dafty, as she was known to her friends. Dafty. Yes, says Michael. Yes. How about that, you see? You didn't expect me to know that, did you? I have read Rebecca, actually. Oh, yes. I don't buy these books for just for decoration, you know. I do occasionally read one or two of them. Daphne du Maurier, I beg your pardon. Daffy Maury. Hey, Daffy Darl. Anyway, enough of this nonsense. Catch you tomorrow. Take care, and bye for now. Bye-bye. Toodle pip. Daphne du Maurier, I don't know. Clapperbridge. Oh, what a load of old tosh, eh?